Good evening. First time here, and I think this will be a pretty quick, short story to wind us down for the night. This story's actually inspired by events that happened over the last hour and a half. I didn't intend to tell a story. So, quick background, in 2013, I moved my family down to Guadalajara, Mexico for 3 years to take a work assignment. And I have 4 children. My oldest at the time was 13, and then there were 3 girls below him, all the way down to 6 or so. And it was a tough transition. It's exciting to move out. We're going to see a new culture and learn new language, but the reality is ripping kids out of school and out of scouts, and they're just making friends, and everything's so delicate as it is, to go down with everything new and the insecurities that come with it. So the first 6 months were tough, but that story ended well, and we had a wonderful time. One of the aspects of that is we had our kids in bilingual school, the American School of Guadalajara, so there's a mixture of people from all over the world, as well as kids that grew up in Mexico and have a good opportunity to go to a bilingual school. And so my son, my oldest son at the time, who was 13, was doing his best to socialize, making friends. And one thing that became clear is there are different customs. A lot of his friends were taken off in the summer to go to France, or to take these extravagant trips. And it was just the way it was. And it's a great thing. But as parents, we're getting questions, can I go to Europe? And he's 13 years old. So my son is an investigator, and he looked at a bunch of opportunities, and there was always an idea of where he could go. And the next year or so, he was ready to go to Costa Rica. And he had the plans, and he could fly. And it's like, I don't know, you're only 14 years old. That's a big trip. No, we have it all figured out. Well, things didn't quite work out to go down there then, but we were home that summer, and an opportunity rose where he said, Dad, if I could just be permitted to fly down to Costa Rica by myself, at the age of 14, then there's somebody who's going to meet me down there, and it's a big group, and I don't know. But I think what happened is we got a little bit loose and said, okay, I guess, but we have to figure this thing out. So next thing you know, it's like the day before heading to Costa Rica, and I'm taking my son to the airport, and we get there, and wow, this is really happening. I'm dropping him off and making sure we went over gates, and when you get there, and then you transfer this gate, and you hang out, and you're going to have 2 hours, get down there and meet your folks. So I took him to the airport, let him be on his way, drove back feeling a little strange for what I did, went on with the day, and later that evening, I happened to have a men's group that we had at church. It was a good thing. Half of the evening was a little bit more solemn, and the other half we went next door and drank beers and talked. And it was a nice group of people. I hadn't been back for some time because I was just back over the summer, and right before I went into that second social part, my wife called and said, bad news, Hayden didn't make his connection from Miami to Costa Rica. He's stuck in Miami airport, and it's getting late. It's like 8:30 at night. So it's like, oh boy, call. I'm talking to the security guard now that's explaining to me they're not allowed to have a child sitting out in the seats all evening until his connection the next morning. So he now needs to stay in the security's office. Like, wow, this thing, I was just a little too lax, and now this is not working out. This is actually not cool at all. I can picture my little boy in the security office, forlorn and, what's the word, lugubrious. It was a low moment. I go into part 2 of our evening. I'm gathering my thoughts. I just talked to my wife, and there was it was a nice men's group gathering. And I told the guys, I said, I got a real problem, and I told everybody the whole story. My son's stuck in Miami. Well, sure enough, one guy says, I think I can help you. And he says, my son lives in Miami. He's coming home from work now. He goes by the Miami International Airport. I bet he can pick him up and take care of your son tonight and bring him back tomorrow morning. Like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So this individual gets his son on the phone, talks to him. Now I'm talking to his son, a mysterious stranger. wonderful young man. Absolutely, Brian, I can do this. I can take care of it. I'm going to get a hold of your son. We exchanged numbers. I got all three of them on the telephone together. And sure enough, it worked out. Within like 50 minutes, he was picked up and on the couch of this mysterious stranger's house at home. It worked out really nicely. It's just one of those things. And what makes this story really interesting in the punchline is when I walked into the men's group that night, Paul Armstrong, the cat guy who was just up here a second ago, was the gentleman who had the son who helped my son. That's it, lugubrious.